Today is November 19th, 1974, and I am interviewing Rabbi Herbert Eskin in Oak Park, Illinois. I'd first like to ask you, when did you first encounter the survivors of the Holocaust? In what year? And what were the circumstances under which you met them?
My first meeting with so-called survivors. Do you mean people who have returned back from hiding places outside of the country?
Well, either they were hiding someplace
in Germany or in France.
Yes. Well, where were you first?
Oh well, I landed in Marseille, France.
You landed in Marseille
with the 100 Infantry Division. I was a combat chaplain. My division consisted of approximately 15,000 men, of which 1,100 were Jews. The largest congregation of Jews of any division in the United States Army. I was an Army chaplain. Mm-hmm. After we have landed in Marseille, France,
which was
the year of 1940. Let's see, it was 1944. 1944. Way through from Marseille all the way to Ramble-Villers, France, which is a small village, and there, of course, we have been committed to battle. We were in battle 183 days. And needless to say, we've had considerable many losses in our division of the Jewish personnel. And of course, my first encounter with a returned Jew from Switzerland, who escaped from Ramble-Villers, a former Jew, a man by the name of Levy, and of course he was a merchant in Ramble-Villers. A very interesting experience I've had in Ramble-Villers, which I think is worthwhile bringing to the attention of our people. I was told by a soldier that he visited a nearby village where formerly there was a Jewish community there. And he has noticed that the tombstones from the cemetery were used for sidewalk around the Catholic Church. When I heard this, I immediately drove out there, and I confronted the priest of the church why he permitted that tombstones, which of course are sacred to the Jewish people as well as to non-Jews, that he would desecrate the cemetery as well as the former community people that lived in that community by using their tombstones as sidewalks around the church. And he hemmed and hawed and gave me all kinds of answers, of course, that didn't have any reason. He told me that he was compelled by the German soldiers to do that, which of course was not true. I took him into my Jeep, and we drove out to the mayor of the village, to the Burgermeister, and I told the Burgermeister how I felt, how sad I felt about this act, and how what a horrible expression, an inhuman act it is to desecrate a cemetery using the tombstones for sidewalks. And I ordered him, although a chaplain does not have the authority, command authority and order, but nevertheless in time of war, we were using the prerogatives, and being a captain in rank at that time. I gave the mayor 24 hours to remove the stones back to the cemetery and place them on their and over the graves, over the people from whom they removed these tombstones. He was very much upset because I didn't give him enough time to do it, and he also said he didn't have the personnel to do it with, and I told him that he should use men, women, and children, if necessary, to have those stones moved within 24 hours, and if he fails to move those stones within 24 hours, I will come in and blow up the church. Under this threat, the following day, with that threat, I made him to sign a paper, and somewhere in my files I have that, in which he promises, commits himself, that he will, that this work will be done within 24 hours. I did go the following day there, and the tombstones were placed on the cemetery, but they were not cemented as yet. A week later, they were cemented under various places, at which time I had a memorial service for the people, at the cemetery, and also I had my many of my GIs attending that service.
Do you remember where this went?
It went in the year in the month of tell you exactly. It must have been in the month of November.
November
1944.
1944.
That's right.
And where was this?
That was in France, in a village about 10 kilometers from Rambouillet, France. Rambouillet, France. R-A-M-B, Rambouillet, 2 L's, E-S, B-I, 2 L-E-S, Rambouillet, France, L-E-S. Now, after that, of course, we went into, we were fighting the Vosges Mountains, V-O-S-G-E-S, Vosges Mountains, practically at a standstill, and we were near the Maginot Line. And then, of course, we went into Germany. We crossed the Rhine and Mannheim, and from Mannheim we went from Mannheim. Of course, we went to Stuttgart. We fought our way to Stuttgart. A very interesting experience I've had also near after crossing the Rhine. We were camped not far from the Rhine. I would say about 20 to 25 kilometers. And the soldier, and up to this point, I have not yet met any displaced people or prisoners or from the camps or from the concentration camps.
Right.
And I was very much concerned and worried. And of course, our personnel were told that we are not to fraternize with any civilians, even DPs, even prisoners of war, even foreigners, because for security reasons. But nevertheless, our Jewish boys, I've instructed my Jewish personnel to look for Jews. In Hebrew, we would say, "Et achai mevakesh." I was looking for my brethren, and I was very much concerned because up to that point, I didn't find any. It was right after a battle that we took a small town, and a soldier came to me and said to me he heard that there was in that area a small hospital. It was near, not far from Stuttgart.
Do you remember the place?
Yes, I will tell you where it is. It's in Ludwigsburg. It's not far from Stuttgart, Ludwigsburg. And there was a hospital there. And
do you remember the name of the hospital?
no, I don't know. There was the only hospital. It's a small town.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small town. And there was a hospital there. And I said to, he heard there was a woman in the hospital that she may be Jewish. This was one of our medics who inspected the hospital, and it seems like she didn't talk to him or say anything to him, but from her resemblance he could see that she had like a Jewish face. And so he came and he told me about this. I went to the hospital and I pretended like I was making a visitation, a chaplain's visitation in the hospital. And I went into this particular room and looked at this woman, and she looked at me like with a Jewish punim, you know, dark complected, and she looked at me, and I was looking at her, and she kept on looking. Then I bent down and I let her look at my helmet, which was, I had an emblazed, the symbol of a Jewish chaplain, the insignia of a Jewish chaplain.
Did you have it on the side as well?
I had it on the side, but they didn't understand. But I also had it on my helmet. Actually, I had it welded, you know, to the helmet, and the Aseres Hadibros, you know, tablets. And she looked, and the Magen David on top, and she looked at that.
Was that
This is the insignia of the Jewish chaplains.
Every chaplain has the same?
Every Christian chaplain wears a cross,
Right.
and every Jewish chaplain wore the two tablets with the Latin numerals, and plus and also on top a Magen David, and a Star of David, you know, the Star of David. And she looked at it, and she was looking. I purposely bent down so she can see it. And when she saw this, she smiled. And I said to her in Yiddish, Ayid. There was next to her was a woman lying down, and she looked like she was Polish. So this woman got out of her bed, and she said to me in German, she said to me, I want to speak to you, I want to talk to you, I've got to see you. She walked into the hallway, she got a hold of my hands, she wouldn't let me go. She says, I must go with you, wherever you go, I will follow you, I'll do anything, you must not leave me here. And she looked like she had a fever, and she told me that she had a kidney infection. I told her that it's impossible for me to take her out of the hospital, and for many reasons. I say I will wind up in a penitentiary if I will even take her out of the building, that I'm under very strict orders, that I cannot even speak to civilians, and what applies to the enlisted men also applies to me. And I said that, but I promised her that I will come the following day, which was on a Thursday. That was Wednesday on the following day, and she should be ready. I will be there at noon at 12 o'clock. I returned at 12 o'clock, and I promised her. She wouldn't let me go, but I begged her, please to let me go. And the following day at 12 noon, this is an experience I will never forget this. I met her, and I brought along with me a pair of GI trousers. I brought along with me an army shirt, trousers, a raincoat, a helmet, a pair of boots, and of course I had 2-3 blankets, and I took along some coffee and some food supplies and so on. I put it in my Jeep. My Jeep, of course, was an open Jeep, but closed in. We improvised some shelter, you know, around, like plywood around, so that at least should protect us from the cold. And I walked into the hospital, and I asked the doctor to release her to me, that I'm taking her to an Army hospital, the United States Army hospital, and I asked her to give her medications to take along. And she looked like she was burning up with fever. And she came out with me in the Jeep, and no sooner we got out and we traveled about 2-3 miles, I got off the road, and I told her to put on the Army trousers and the boots and the raincoat and the helmet. And of course she did have short hair, you know, because the women hairs were cut. And I told her that I'm going to try to get her across the Rhine, to Nancy, France. In Nancy, France, there were already a few people I was told were already, by that time, they were already liberated, you know. That is, they gathered together from Polish people, and they had like a little club there, maybe 15 or 20 Jews. So she got dressed in the clothes, and I told her to get into the Jeep, and she was sitting right next to me, and I covered up her feet, you know, and of course I told her to hide her hands in the sleeves of her raincoat, and I said, when we'll come, we had to cross the Rhine, you know. It's Heilbronn is the little, we had to cross, Heilbronn is actually not Ludwigsburg, but was in Heilbronn, Germany. And
that's where the hospital was.
That's right. And no, Ludwigsburg. Heilbronn is a different story, pardon me.
Okay.
Ludwigsburg, you will have to erase that.
No, that's all right. No.
Okay.
It's all.
Now, and I took her down, we had to cross the Rhine to get into France. And at that time, of course, there were MPs on the American side, and there were French guards already on the other side. The bridge, of course, was the regular bridge was blown up, so they had the regular, these rubber platoons, that they made one way you could ride on that. And so when I came to that was my great worry. Now, what am I going to do when I come to the MPs? You had to have a pass to get out of Germany to France. And here I have a passenger who was a civilian. Number one. Number two, I'm an officer. I'm not supposed to drive. And my assistant, only a driver. An officer doesn't drive. Usually the assistant drives, or else they have a regular jeep driver. Well, I told my assistant to stay to take care of things around for my chaplain's work while I was gone. And I told them that I'm going to visit rear echelon hospitals. And here I have the civilian, and I have to naturally pass first the MPs and then on the French side. Well, when I came to the MPs, I took this chance. First of all, I told her, when we come to closer to the area of the bridge, I want her to tuck in her head inside, of the raincoat, so that her face will not be seen, and push over the helmet over her face, and her hands inside the sleeves, and of course her feet were covered. And when I drove up there, I was really frightened because they could have asked me who that is or asked for an ID card. So I drove up, and the MP said, "Chaplain." Of course, they know that I'm a chaplain because there was underneath the dashboard, or rather the windshield, on the outside, there was always spelled out the word chaplain. I had two Magen Davids on each side, while Christians had two crosses, and beginning of the word and the end of the word of chaplain. So at the name, so that when they saw it, they said, "Chaplain, where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going over to Nancy, France." I said, "And forgive me for driving." I said, "This is my assistant. He's been driving," I say, "for the last couple hours," I said, "and he's so tired." So I took over the wheel until drive a few miles so that he'll get a little rest, and he's sleeping. I please hope you don't wake him up. He said, "Okay, Chaplain, go ahead." Well, that was one hurdle. But then when I was getting close to the French border, I prepared a pass, and my pass consisted in French as well as in English. And for a stamp, I used a $50, a silver $50 with the eagle on it. And I put that from as a stamp, and I showed it to them, and they said, "Go ahead," and I kept on going. And of course, after driving for about 5 miles, she looked. I said, "Now you can look up," and she looked up, and I was really frightened. She saw that my perspiration was running down my face, and she says, "What are you perspiring? It's cool outside." It was drizzling, It was the month of March, and it was drizzling.
This is March 45.
March already of 45, just before March of 45. And she says to me, "What are you perspiring? It's cold outside." I said, "If you know what happened." And then I told her what actually happened, what trouble I could have been in if they'd ever catch me taking a civilian across from Germany into France. And of course, when we arrived all the way down to Nancy, the roads were beach, and every time we'd go over one of those torn out road holes, that were made by tanks, and they tear up the highway. She would complain of pain and agony because it's awful hard to ride in a Jeep. The bumps were awful hard for her to take. And we arrived towards evening in Nancy, and there I had a hard time. What am I going to do with her now? I don't know where those people are staying. And Nancy is not a small little town. It's quite a large city. And even though it was pretty well damaged by the war, but nevertheless, people lived. And I'd walk around as I'm driving, and people had their heads sticking out of the window, So I would ask them, where's Jew? Zviv, Is he Zviv? Is this a Jew? And at the best of my French, I don't speak French. And finally, somebody was smart enough, and they understood that I was looking for some Jewish home. And so they directed me to a former manufacturer of women's clothing, and I put her there for the night, and I went to an army hospital, stay overnight, and I told him the following morning I'll pick her up. And of course he fed her, and she stayed overnight. The next morning I came over to his place, picked her up, and I took her to the to the Jewish people there, and they said to me in Yiddish, "Don't worry, sorg sich nicht, we'll take care of her." And of course, she said to me, her name was Regina Hirschkorn. Regina Hirschkorn. She now lives formerly in Florida. Now she lives in New York. She and her husband, they have a clothing store. And but the real story is this: that when I left her name is Regina Hirschkorn. When I left her, she said to me, I will see you in Detroit." She gave me the names of a relative of hers in Detroit who is a prominent attorney here. I immediately sent him a telegram. And he got in touch with her, and lo and behold, on my return from Germany to the States, within about 6 months thereafter, I got a call at midnight. And who was it? Regina Hirschkorn in Detroit. The relatives that I've contacted for her through the Red Cross immediately got in touch with her and immediately brought her over to the States. She was the only survivor of the entire family of about 60 souls. And she was brought here by a very prominent attorney by the name of Albert Silver. And of course, she lost her husband and she remarried here in the States. And they live in Florida, and of course now they are merchants.
Do you know what her last name is today?
Her last name is I believe, Cohn. Cohn, that's right, Regina Cohn.
C-O?
C-O-H-E-N.
And you have no idea what her husband's first name is?
No, I don't. I really
It would
don't.
be very difficult to track it down.
Yeah, I could find out for you.
Yeah, if you could, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. All right, now, but Regina Hirschkorn is something. She said to me, as sick as she was, she says, "I will never forget you. You saved my life. I will see you in the United States, in Detroit." And of course, she did. Now, from then, I will relate to the real. This is just minor little stories. My experience of a chaplain was being a chaplain in the combat. You know, you had many sad experiences. Seeing so many of your Jewish personnel killed. From the original 100, it dwindled down to 500. And then I had many replacement Jews. I had as many in combat, I had as many as 25 burials a day, Jewish burials a day. So that if anyone says to you, the Jews didn't make the contribution, they didn't fight for the good old USA, these are facts that I can establish. I have the records, I have their names of everyone that I've officiated over the graveside. Other experience, I not only did officiate over Jewish personnel, but my experience has also been that I've had the sad experience of even officiating, saying the last rites with a Protestant lad, a young man who I knew yet from the States. But he always come and visit the chaplains at the chapel, you know. It was something of a friendly gesture when they come by and say, "Hi, chaplain." It was a friendly relationship. I knew this young man, he was from Iowa. His name was Carl DeHorn. Carl DeHorn. And Carl, I knew him as a very fine young man, a little blonde, blue-eyed, handsome young man. And there I'm visiting a first aid station in combat. I was one of those chaplains who wasn't in the rear echelon. I was with my man all the time. And I was decorated for it, too, also. So so I recognized him, and there he was with a mask, oxygen mask over his face, and breathing very heavily. I looked at the nurse who was standing in back of him, and she turned her head, shook her head as to say, "This is it. He will make it." And then I could see he wants to say something. So I asked the nurse if it's all right for me to move the mask, and perhaps he'll say something, whisper something to me, which I did. And he said to me, "Chaplain, say a prayer with me." And I put the mask back on, and I got down actually on my knees, which is not customary for Jews to do. But this was his way. Later, this was later reported in the Jewish press, and I was a little criticized for that. But being that he was a Christian, and I didn't know how he would take on being with a helmet on, and I'm being an Orthodox rabbi, I took off my helmet, and I said with him the 23rd Psalm. And I took his hand and I held his hand and I was saying the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, slowly, you know, and he said it after me. I could see his lips. And no sooner I finished, I felt a clamp on my hand, and I looked at Carl and he was gone. And this touched me very, very deeply. And so that was on a Friday. And Friday night I conducted a service for my Jewish personnel. And you could imagine what was my talk about. The topic of my sermon was Carl the Harman, the American. That I recall emphasizing the fact that the true brotherhood, you know, that our barriers are set aside and we lose our identity, Jew, Christian, when tragedy strikes us and when we are confronted with tragedies of life, which of course, life and death, it touches everyone. So this was an experience that I had at the crossing of Heilbronn. There's a river, you know, down there at Heilbronn. Now, of course, when we got into Stuttgart, it was there that I had my opportunity to meet with one of the outstanding Jewish attorneys in the entire province of Württemberg. His name was Ostertag, Benno Ostertag. Benno Ostertag. This Benno, the history, he was one of the outstanding, most brilliant attorneys in Württemberg. He was married to a Catholic, and he had a daughter, one daughter, who were Catholics, both of them, but he was a Jew. How did I find him?
Do you remember when this was?
This was in April.
April of 1945.
April of 1945. This was just before the end of the war, the end of the very last week of April of 1945. Ben Ostertag, what happened when I got to Stuttgart, I met a woman by the name of, whose maiden name was Rothschild. And she claimed to be a descendant of Rothschild, but she was married to a German. And she was a Mischling, what they call a Mischling, you know, intermarried. And she told me about this Ben Ostertag who was hiding in a small village near Stuttgart. And so she told me how to get there, and I went there, and I came to the gate of that particular name that she gave me. It was a German, well-known cloth manufacturer, wool cloth manufacturer.
Yeah, sure, the name.
I think it was Rosenberg or Rosenthal. It sounded Jewish, but he wasn't Jewish. Or it was in the little town of Rosenthal. Offhand, I don't recall, but it was in that village, 10 miles, about 10 miles from, or 15 or 16 kilometers from Stuttgart. And I came and came to the gate, and there was 3 of those huge dogs, what do they call these dogs, you know, with the pug faces, you know.
Boxers?
Boxers. 3 boxers, huge. They were prize boxers, later I found out. I ran up and, of course, barking, and there came out the owner. And I'm there with my assistant. And I said, I'm looking for Ben Ostertag, and of course he was frightened. I said, he asked me who I was, and I told him that we Americans are here. We came into this, we've taken Stuttgart. And I said, I want to see Mr. Ostertag. And Ostertag came out, and I told him that I was a rabbi. And when I said to him, he says, had I been here, he embraced me and would not let me go, and he was weeping. Later, I found out that this Ben Ostertag at one time took the community of Stuttgart, the Jewish community, to court because he did not want to pay taxes that would support a Jewish community. He said, I was a German and I'm not a Jew, and I don't want to be identified with the Jewish people. I'm a German, and therefore I don't want to pay taxes towards the maintenance of the Jewish community. And he took actually this case to court. Look how ironic it is that later he was happy to be identified with the Jews, and he dedicated his services to the Jewish people to his dying day. And he immediately offered his services to me and helped me in every way he can. And of course, he did. I asked him, I said to him, you know, I'm sure the war soon will be, within a few days, it will completely end, and there'll be many people who will be coming from the prisons, liberated from the concentration camps, and we'll have to find places for them where to stay. And what I would like to do is to get a location for a central headquarters. And I said, and I would like to get a place that formerly belonged to the Jews, so that I wouldn't give the satisfaction to the Germans that they should take it away, requisition it take it away from us. And of course, he said to me, well, I will try to locate this place for you. In the meantime, my general, General Beres, asked me, that is through his executive officer, asked me if maybe I could, from a few of the Jews that by that time he already knew that I knew a few of the Jews, Michelin Jews, of someone in the community who was at no time a Gestapo man or a Nazi. And I asked this Benno Ostertag if he can recommend someone to be Bürgermeister, for the position of Bürgermeister, someone who was not a Gestapo, someone who was anti-Nazi, but who would not play along, because we were still concerned about security. So he told us of a man by the name of Mr. Fischer, who was also an outstanding attorney, but he was an enemy, actually, of the entire Nazi regime, Nazi movement. And we have recommended this to the commanding officer, and this Fischer became the Bürgermeister of Stuttgart. Now,
Remember his first name?
I don't recall his first name. Now, after we met with, after he became Bürgermeister, we asked this Herr Fischer to designate to us, to allow us to use or give us a building which was practically a block square, right with the address of 26 Rheinsburgstrasse, 26, Rheinsburgstrasse 26. This is a 3-story building, almost a block, a square block, well, formerly belonged to Jews by the name of Jacobs, or Jacobis, that's right, Jacobis, that they were sure that they did not survive the Holocaust. And so we took over that building, and we called it the Israelitische Kultusvereinigung von Stuttgart. And to this day, this building is still used by the Jewish agencies in Stuttgart, which is now, of course, a very beautiful city, and large city, has been rebuilt, and still is Rheinsstraße 26. And incidentally, when I left, the community that I've already organized then, both of Michelin Jews and non-Michelin Jews, Polish Jews that remained there and so on, they honored me by naming that building Eskin House. And so that building is known when you come to Stuttgart, it's known, where is Eskin House? A little incident I had recently in Israel. I was at the, not to get off the subject, but I was going to the Dead Sea there, near the hotel, the Pan American Hotel. I was there for 3 days, for a weekend, and lo and behold, I overheard 2 German women speaking in German, and they looked like they were, one didn't look very much of a Jewish. So I didn't hesitate, and I asked them where they're from, and one of them, this younger woman, said to me that she's from Stuttgart. And I said to her, oh, from Stuttgart, do you know the Jewish community there? The Israelitische Kultusvereinigung. She says, you mean Eskin House? See? And it was really a thrill for me to hear. I will say to you, I must admit that I was happy to know that this was still maintained that way, called Eskin House. And she told me, of course, how it's operated and how the personnel and so on. But anyway, this Eskin House, or Rheinsburgstrasse, the central, all the Jews started to come together there, both the Michelingen and the Jews that were liberated from the concentration camps. And I established their offices. I established there from civilian offices, one that needed quarters where to stay. And I so organized it that no sooner a person opened the door, somebody was there to greet him. If they spoke Polish, they would take him to a desk where there was a man who was an educated individual, also who came from a concentration camp, and who volunteered to render the service by interviewing these people, and as soon as we interviewed them, asked them whether they had any relations anywhere in the world, particularly in the United States, so that we can immediately send a telegram and notify the relations that one of their relatives has survived the Holocaust and where they can get in touch and what can be done for them. In the meantime, we would give them a place where to stay, and then I would provide for them food and clothing and everything else until such, because this was just immediately after the war, and this was just during the period when Eisenhower said that we shouldn't give any assistance to anyone, we shouldn't fraternize with them, and UNRWA came in and gave them a little bread with about 1,500 calories a day, and we had to supplement it because these people came in from Buchenwald and from other camps, Theresienstadt, and they were coming in droves. You know, you can see them walking down the street, some of them with torn shoes, with barefooted, with their long coats, the women and the men with the pajamas, you know, dirty, very, you know, with knocked out teeth, short hair, looking to talk to someone for aid. And no one was around there, and of course, it wasn't very long where they all found out that there is a place, and they were coming in into droves, and of course, I had arranged bureaus, you know, desks where they would be interviewed for clothing and food. And the question is, where did I get the clothing,
Right.
and where did I get the food? Now it could be told 25 and 30 years later. Let me tell you, my dear friend, what I used to do. You've heard of the Purple Gang in Detroit. I was not a member of the Purple Gang, but what I have practiced was very similar to this. I used to have 6 men, a command of 6 men from my unit, and we worked on that basis. We used to pull out a 2.5-ton truck from the motor pool.
Do you remember the people's names?
Well, there's a fellow by the name of Greenberg. I've got it written down somewhere. That is offhand. I can't recall them, but I have their names. They were men who volunteered to do everything and anything. They were also in positions, you know, where they could get away. So that oh yes, let me tell you about when they would come in. I had several places where I would place them. I took over a sanitarium with the help of this Bürgermeister near Stuttgart. It was actually a sanitarium. It was like a convalescent home. Beautiful place. And I took that over and I put my people to stay there.
What do you mean you took it over?
Well,
how did you do it?
What we did is we told the Germans to get the hell out, and we put our Jews in there.
In other words, you went up there
We
yourself?
went up there, I went up there and I gave them the orders that I want this within 2 hours, 3 hours, cleared out. The people to left and everything should be left as is.
Do you remember the name of the hospital?
The Katz Sanatorium. It's called Katz Sanatorium. It was the most beautiful place. It was like flowers with the flowers all around the buildings and the gardens full of flowers. You know, it was a convalescent, very high class. I took this with a gymnasium, incidentally.
Do you remember when you took this place over?
Yeah.
Do you remember when?
That was already right after the war.
In May of
In May of 1945.
Can you remember the day or so?
Well, I can't remember the day. It was already about towards the end of May. Put it this way, towards the end of May. They were coming in by droves after the end, you know, people are coming in.
And you had set up the...
And Katz Sanatorium, that's one place. Then in Geppingen I had a place. Then I had in Esslingen a place. All told, I had 2,000 DPs under my supervision, under my care.
And the Army didn't know about
And
it?
the Army, to a point, and I'll tell you all about this.
Okay.
The Army, at that point, I said to my Jewish personnel, after I established this Eskin house, I said to them, forget me about services. I got a big job. All I want you to do is do certain things for me. Bring me the food that you can get together. I say get it from German groceries. I don't care how you get it. I say bring me the food, bring me ammunition, because the Jewish brigade, the Jewish brigade that was with the English Army, every Friday were passing through our area, Stuttgart, taking supplies to the English military personnel, and then coming back through Italy. They were coming from Italy, going through Stuttgart, going up to the English armies, supplying them with supply, bringing them supply. But on the way back, they came with empty trucks, and they told me to get as much ammunition, bombs, anything I could get. I have in the way of guns, machine guns, anything in the way of weapons, so that when they come back, they can take it with them.
So you're actually the first person I've met who was involved in
in
guns
to
went to Palestine.
to Italy, yeah, to the
Yeah.
Hasharas, and even personnel I sent to Hasharas, and I'll tell you how I did this.
All right.
Now
Well,
here.
let's stay with one thing at a
All right,
time.
time.
Okay.
Now we are there now in Stuttgart, and we have this building. The people are being placed in various areas, and I have to feed them. So what we used to do is, first of all, I had 2 men in quartermaster, Jewish personnel in quarter, usually, supply. So I told them, I said, I need coffee, I need sugar, I need things like that, I need blankets, I need, because the women were used to make from the blankets skirts, and then they used to also, so that they used to, and Eisenhower jackets, they used to sell, do a little black marketing. I kind of shut my eye to those things because they bought something with it, like a dress or something like that. And I used to take the 2.5-ton truck out of the motor pool at night, and I used to take with me 2 drivers and 2 men with rifles, and I used to drive with my Jeep, and we used to go into the closest village. It was just the first couple of weeks that we had to do it, and because I couldn't supply with meat. I didn't have any meat, and here I am, an Orthodox rabbi, and I'd go into a village, and I would tell a farmer to slaughter a cattle for me. They would skin it for me, and take out all the guts, and then load it on the truck. You see, and I would take it with me. Would take it in the truck, wrap it up in one of those army covers, and we used to haul it in, and I take it into to the areas where the Jews were, so they can have fresh meat. Then I used to go into the grocery stores and take out whatever I could from the shelves. Cheeses. They had sardines, the best Swedish sardines, and huge cheeses, those huge big cheeses they used to have. And whatever I could lay my hands on, and I used to bring that. And by 4 o'clock in the morning, the truck was back in the motor pool, and I would stand at formation at 6 o'clock. See, and then of course I would take whatever I could from the quartermaster, those 100-pound bags of sugar, and I used to haul and bring it over there. And coffee, those 5-pound cans of coffee. I don't know how many hundreds of pounds that we hauled away, stuff like that, to them, until of course the time came that I was reported. I was caught. They had what they call the Stuttgart commander, military commander, and he was, the American soldiers used to fraternize, that. They used to shack up with the women, and this fellow was a full colonel, a fellow by the name of Colonel Dawson, D-A-W-S-O-N. And this mamzer requested I come to see him, and when I came to see him, he said to me, Chaplain, how dare you do what you have been doing? And one of the things that I have done, which I have failed earlier to relate to you along this line, is on one given Friday, I was on my way to conduct services in a regiment. Mm-hmm. And is it still going?
Yeah.
And this is a very interesting thing because event that took place.
Do you remember when?
When it was also in the month of May.
Latter part?
Early part of May. Mm-hmm. It was, I would say, about the 20th of May of 1945. See, I have my records, but it's all packed away, and I just. Those things you never forget,
right.
So I'm driving on the Autobahn towards a regiment regimental headquarters to conduct services. And there I see a convoy come in the opposite direction. A long convoy of 2.5-ton trucks with human beings standing up, packed like sardines with stripes on them. And I said to my assistant, I said, Morris?
Yeah, Morris who?
Morris Rosenberg.
Do you know where he is?
And he is now in Israel. He's living in Israel. Morris Rosenberg of Israel.
Do you know where in Israel?
In Jerusalem. He's married, lives in Jerusalem. And I said to him, Rosenberg, we're having guests. We're going to have guests for Shabbos, I say. It looks like they're going somewhere. I'm going to find out. And I turned my Jeep around, and I stopped the convoy, and I asked the officer, who was a first lieutenant, where are you taking these people? He says, we're taking them to Stuttgart. I said, where to Stuttgart? He says, well, some rabbi over there. They've got some kind of a Jewish center over there. And I said to myself, yeah, you're talking to the right man. So I look up there and say, wo fahrt ihr in Yiddish? It says, wir fahren zur Arov in Stuttgart. They already heard it. I have a center there. And so I told them I was, and they jumped off, you know, from the trucks, and they surrounded me right in the middle of the Autobahn, you know, and I told them that I'm going to go with them, and I forgot about my service. I took them to Stuttgart, and there were two apartment buildings. There were two apartment buildings right near the railroad there, off Rheinsburgstrasse. I would say about 3-4 blocks away from the Jewish center. Two big apartment buildings. And I drive these people up with the trucks to the apartment buildings, and I say, you gentlemen stay here until I have certain people to call. I call up two Jewish young men who were with the interrogation squad from our division.
Good.
One was a redhead, and he was a young man, I think about 21 years old, but of age, but he spoke